You know, there's a quiet hum in our modern kitchens, a soft, constant thrumming that we barely even notice anymore. It's the sound of the refrigerator, always there, always keeping our food perfectly chilled, ready for whenever we need it. But cast your mind back, just a little, to a time before that constant hum was simply a given. Think of your grandparents' homes, perhaps your own childhood home, before every kitchen boasted a gleaming, frost-free marvel. Keeping food fresh was a daily dance, a thoughtful orchestration of ingenuity and resourcefulness. It wasn't just about opening a door and grabbing a carton of milk. It was about understanding temperature, about knowing where the coolest spot in the house might be, about a rhythm of life that revolved around the seasons and the simple physics of keeping things cold. We're going to step back into that world today, a world where the methods for preserving food were as varied and charming as the homes themselves. Imagine, if you will, a summer afternoon. The sun is high, and the air is thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and perhaps the distant sound of a lawnmower. Inside, however, a different kind of industry is at play. One of the most common, and perhaps the most iconic, ways your grandparents kept food cold was with the faithful icebox. Before the widespread adoption of electric refrigerators in every home, these sturdy wooden or metal cabinets were the cornerstone of kitchen preservation. You remember them, don't you? Often finished in oak or ash, sometimes painted white or cream, they stood a little taller than a modern dishwasher, with a hinged lid or a top-access door that revealed the ice compartment. Down below, behind another latching door, was where the food was carefully arranged. The ritual of the icebox was a familiar one. The iceman, a true hero of the neighborhood, would make his rounds. You could hear the clink of the tongs against the huge blocks of ice as he hoisted them from his truck, often an open-backed vehicle with canvas covers to keep the ice from melting too quickly. He'd carry those heavy blocks, sometimes weighing 25, 50, or even 100 pounds, right up to the back door, or perhaps even into the kitchen itself. Sometimes a small, hand-painted sign would be placed in the window, a card with numbers like 25, 50, 75, or 100, which you'd flip to show the iceman how much ice you needed that day. It was a simple, elegant system. Once the block of ice was nestled in its compartment, usually lined with galvanized tin or porcelain, a subtle magic began. The ice would slowly melt, and as it did, it would draw heat from the air inside the box, cooling the food placed in the lower section. A small pan underneath collected the meltwater, and someone, usually a child or a helpful teenager, would have the daily chore of emptying that pan. You didn't want it to overflow, especially on a warm day. The icebox wasn't just a container, it was a lesson in thermodynamics, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between cold and heat. It meant careful planning. Perishable items like milk, butter, and cooked leftovers went right near the ice. Vegetables and fruits might be a little further away, relying on the overall coolness of the insulated cabinet. It was a system that worked, relying on simple principles and a whole community infrastructure to deliver that essential ingredient, ice. Moving away from the daily delivery, another ingenious method, one that tapped into the very earth itself, was the root cellar. This wasn't just a place to store food, it was a sanctuary, a cool, dark, and often damp haven for the bounty of the garden. Root cellars were typically built underground, either as separate structures, sometimes just a mound of earth with a sturdy door, or as an extension of the house's basement. The key was the stable, year-round temperature and humidity provided by the surrounding soil. You remember the particular smell of a root cellar, don't you? That earthy, slightly sweet aroma of stored potatoes, onions, carrots, and apples. It was a scent that promised sustenance through the long winter months. Bins and shelves lined the walls, carefully organized. Potatoes, often stored in dark, airy bins to prevent sprouting. Onions, hung in mesh bags or laid out on slatted shelves to allow for good air circulation. Apples, sometimes wrapped individually in newspaper to prevent them from ripening too quickly or spoiling their neighbors. Jars of homemade preserves, jams, jellies, pickled vegetables also found their place there, safe from light and temperature fluctuations. The root cellar was a testament to self-sufficiency, a vital component of homes that grew much of their own food. It wasn't just for raw produce. Cured meats like ham or bacon might hang from the rafters, slowly aging in the cool, consistent air. The thick walls of earth and stone kept the internal temperature remarkably steady, hovering around 35 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, even when it was blazing hot in July or bitterly cold in January. It allowed families to extend the harvest, enjoying fresh produce far beyond its natural growing season. It was a marvel of passive cooling, a partnership between human ingenuity and the Earth's own steady embrace. Now let's look at something a little less subterranean, a little more visible, but equally effective in its own clever way, the window box. This was a particularly popular solution in urban homes or apartments where space was at a premium and a root cellar simply wasn't an option. Think of it as a natural, outdoor refrigerator powered by the elements. A window box was essentially a small, enclosed cabinet, often made of wood, that was mounted securely outside a kitchen window. It might have a screen or slatted sides to allow for air circulation and a hinged door to access the contents. The genius of the window box lay in its placement. In the colder months, especially during autumn and winter, the ambient outdoor temperature was often cool enough to keep certain foods fresh. It was perfect for items that needed to be kept cooler than room temperature, but didn't necessarily require the deep chill of an icebox. Milk, butter, cheeses, perhaps some cooked leftovers, or a bottle of juice could be placed inside. You'd see them, wouldn't you, on the outside of apartment buildings, sometimes on the second or third floor, a row of these little cabinets clinging to the brickwork like swallows' nests. They were a sign of the seasons, too. In the spring and summer, they might be used more for storage of non-perishables, or perhaps even as a place to keep gardening tools or small household items. But as soon as the temperatures dropped, they reverted to their primary purpose, a handy, free, and surprisingly effective cold storage solution. It was a simple, practical innovation, making the most of the resources at hand, in this case, the brisk outdoor air. And it reminds us that necessity truly is the mother of invention, finding solutions in the everyday environment. Finally, let's consider a method that isn't about cold storage at all, but about preserving food by keeping it away from moisture and pests, extending its life in a different, equally vital way: glass food containers for storing dry goods. While not strictly about keeping things cold, these containers were an absolutely essential part of your grandparents' food preservation strategy, ensuring that staples remained fresh and usable for extended periods. Before the widespread availability of plastic containers and zip-top bags, glass was king. You remember those sturdy, often elegant glass jars, don't you? From large gallon-sized jars to smaller pint and quart sizes, they lined pantry shelves, gleaming under the kitchen light. They weren't just for canning, they were for everyday storage. Coffee, sugar, flour, rice, oatmeal, cornmeal, beans, dried fruits, even crackers and cookies, all found their safe haven within these clear, airtight vessels. There was a particular satisfaction in seeing those organized rows. The flour, snowy white and sifted, the sugar sparkling like crystals, the different kinds of beans in their earthy hues. Often, these jars had metal clamped-down lids with rubber gaskets, creating a truly airtight seal that protected the contents from moisture, insects, and pantry moths. This wasn't just about neatness. It was about preventing spoilage, protecting investments, and ensuring that every precious crumb of food lasted as long as possible. Think of the ritual of baking, the gentle scrape of a measuring cup against the inside of a glass flour jar, the satisfying clink of the sugar scoop, the way the aroma of coffee would waft up when the lid was unlatched. These weren't just containers, they were silent guardians of the pantry, emblems of thrift, and a testament to the enduring practicality of simple, reusable materials. They taught us about careful stewardship, about making things last, about appreciating the food we had. Even today, many of us still cherish and use these very same types of glass jars, a quiet nod to the wisdom of generations past. These four methods, the icebox, the root cellar, the window box, and the glass container, paint a vivid picture of a time when food preservation was a thoughtful, often collaborative, and deeply ingrained part of daily life. It wasn't about convenience as we know it today, It was about ingenuity, about understanding the environment, and about making the most of every resource. Your grandparents weren't just storing food, they were nurturing their families, planning for the future, and embodying a deep respect for the provisions they had. The next time you hear that soft hum from your refrigerator, take a moment to appreciate the journey we've taken, the inventiveness that paved the way for such a commonplace luxury. Think about the iceman's rounds, the cool, earthy scent of the root cellar, the cleverness of a window box, and the sturdy practicality of those glass jars. These weren't just ways to keep food cold, they were reflections of a way of life, a testament to resilience and resourcefulness in the American home. Do you remember a specific moment related to any of these methods? Perhaps emptying the icebox drip pan, or helping to sort apples in the root cellar, or reaching into a window box for a cold bottle of milk. I'd love to hear your own memories of how your family kept food fresh in the days before modern refrigeration became ubiquitous. Please share them in the comments below. It's a wonderful way to keep these stories alive, a gentle reminder of the traditions that shaped us all.